Washington's trade barriers are rising again, and Ottawa has responded with a thunderous answer. A bold new cap of $15.6 billion has been set on steel and aluminum imports from the U.S., and anything beyond that will now face a punishing 50% tariff. This drastic measure has immediately frozen some cross-border shipments, while Canadian furnaces are heating up to meet local demand. At first glance, this looks like a tit-for-tat retaliation, but underneath, it might just be the catalyst Canada has been waiting for to power up its green industrial ambitions. This isn't just a reaction to past U.S. actions. It's a well-calculated move. The roots of this decision stretch back to when former President Trump imposed 30% tariffs on steel imports from Europe and Mexico. That aggressive stance sent shockwaves through Canadian industry, especially among producers still bruised by the Section 232 tariffs of 2018. Business slowed, furnaces went cold, and workers feared another round of layoffs. But this time, instead of waiting to suffer the consequences, Canada's federal cabinet moved quickly. A united front of unions, financial planners, and industry officials created a proactive defense. Within a week, they developed a strategy to shield their economy while giving their green manufacturing sector a boost. At the core of the strategy was a simple formula. Officials determined that 67% of the average annual U.S. imports was the safe zone. Beyond that lay the threat of price dumping. So the cap was drawn at $15.6 billion. To push back hard, a secondary layer was introduced. Anything over that ceiling would face a 50% tariff. That figure was intentionally high, a deliberate shock meant to make American exporters think twice before shipping excess steel into Canada. The uncertainty alone, whether to stay within the 25% tariff range or gamble on the harsher penalty, added to Canada's economic defense mechanism. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland confirmed this wasn't a temporary stunt. The message to industrialists was clear: this is the new normal, and it's time to adapt. But retaliation wasn't the sole goal. For the past 2 years, Canada has been quietly positioning itself as a global leader in low-carbon metal production. Hydroelectric dams in Quebec power electric arc furnaces, drastically lowering carbon emissions. Alberta is turning waste gas into clean hydrogen for use in smelting, and Ontario's old blast furnaces are rapidly converting to modern electric models. Earlier this year, the federal government pledged $1.2 billion to speed up this transition. Now, with foreign competition throttled by tariffs, that investment is set to flourish. Domestic producers using clean tech will finally enjoy a visible price advantage over imported metal. In effect, this policy shuts off the flood of cheap imports and funnels demand into Canada's green manufacturing basin. There's also a security element to this plan. Canada is plugging loopholes that allowed Chinese semi-finished products to sneak in via the US or Mexico. In recent months, Washington placed tariffs on some Chinese alloys, prompting exporters to reroute materials through American processors before shipping to Canada. Ottawa is cutting off that escape route with technology. A blockchain-based tracking system now integrates cargo manifests, satellite tracking, and chemical isotope testing. This allows officials to detect if a product that appears American is actually Chinese at its core. The result? Around 70% of suspicious shipments are slowed or stopped entirely. It's a significant step in protecting domestic supply chains and preserving market integrity. On the ground, the fallout is mixed. The U.S. Midwest sends over $6 billion worth of rolled sheet metal to Canadian automakers every year. These sheets are processed into car parts in Windsor and then sent back to Detroit. Now, with tariffs raising costs by $360 per ton, companies like GM and Ford face tough choices. Should they bring manufacturing back home or continue operating across borders? The supply chain is tightly synchronized. Even slight delays or price hikes can create chaos. Ottawa knows this and is using quarterly tariff evaluations to prevent last-minute export surges. Meanwhile, U.S. aluminum producers in states like Kentucky and Alabama, long reliant on Quebec's hydro-powered ingots, are now facing questions of fairness. Why, Canadians ask, should we subsidize Kentucky's smelting with our clean energy? To soften the blow, Canada has carved out a 50,000-ton exemption for aluminum used in beverage cans. But beyond that, most U.S. imports will get slapped with heavy taxes. This could make American-made whiskey and soda more expensive in Canada. Ironically, the very labor and agriculture groups that once supported protectionist U.S. policies are now scrambling to limit the damage to their own industries. Treasury analysts predict that U.S. exports to Canada could fall by $3.5 billion, while Canadian domestic production rises by $2.6 billion. That's a $1 billion gain for Canada's balance sheet. A gain that means more jobs, more union dues, and more tax revenue. Labor leaders are already celebrating. For the first time in years, work schedules are stable, and furnaces are burning at full capacity. There's more. The pipeline industry is also benefiting. The Alberta energy sector has been lobbying for years to increase the use of domestic pipes. With US steel now more expensive, there's a growing push to build Canadian. The federal government is using energy security as a reason to support this demand, offering targeted subsidies. Quebec's aluminum sector is also celebrating. Thanks to its low carbon footprint, its products are exempt from Europe's carbon border tax, giving them a competitive edge in global markets. While Canada's east-west axis becomes more globally integrated, the north-south axis is focusing inward, strengthening its own supply base. That said, there are concerns. Major construction projects in Vancouver, including tunnels and ports, rely on American steel. To prevent price spikes, Ottawa is preparing a $500 million annual transition fund to support local projects during this adjustment period. In Washington, the reaction has been surprisingly muted. There's no unified stance on tariffs right now. While Republicans in Congress are vocal, Democrats are cautious, weighing environmental goals against trade impacts. Only Kentucky's bourbon lobby has spoken out strongly, warning of a repeat of 2018. But this time Ottawa has left beverages mostly untouched, choosing to focus squarely on base metals and leaving Washington to respond, or not. At the heart of it all is Canada's green ambition. Norway once turned its hydro-powered aluminum into a premium product now used in European cars. Canada is aiming for the same. A facility called PTX will soon combine electric arc furnaces with advanced emissions tech, cutting carbon per ton of steel from 800 kilograms to just 150. Once Europe's carbon border adjustment fully rolls out, Canadian steel could enjoy a Euro 100 per ton advantage over countries like Brazil or Turkey. So this isn't just about retaliation. It's a move to earn Canada a green passport for the future. The coming months are critical. Will Washington seek consultations through trade panels, or will it hide behind the national security clause again? One thing is certain, the blast furnaces in Hamilton are roaring, Quebec's smelters are pulling extra power, and pipeline projects are rewriting their steel sourcing plans. In this global game of trade chess, Canada has played a bold move. This isn't just a pawn's advance, it could be a queen on the board. The echo of tariffs has now been replaced by the hum of progress, as loud and weighty as the metal it forges.